What's up, y'all? It's your boy J.Mitchell, and this is Conversations with Justin, Season 3, Episode 3. We're back. We're back. We're on YouTube now. I know a lot of you all are used to seeing us on Instagram, but now we're finally on YouTube, so you can listen to us anytime, anywhere. Conversations with Justin. It's your boy J.Mitchell, and we have a very special guest on the show today. A very special guest. I am excited to have her on. It's Je'Niece McCullough, the daughter of the one and only, the legendary Mac Man. Mac Man. All right. Bernie Mac, it's Je'Niece McCullough. Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm doing good. Glad to, be back here to talk with you just about, man, about you, about your family, Bernie Mac,
Yeah.
your father Bernie Mac, about you know growing up with him as a father and TV and the industry and just seeing him, and then also talking about sarcoidosis sar how do you say
Tongue
it?
twister. You were right. You were on sarcoidosis. You were right there.
Okay.
You had it.
All right. So yeah, talking about that as well. So for those that, for many of the people that will be watching, can you just briefly give some background on who you are and a little bit of a bio of you?
Oh gosh, I am terrible about talking about myself. Well, as you said, I am Je'Niece McCullough, the daughter of Bernie Mac, his only child. Whew. Um, my background is in psychology and mental health counseling. So I worked in social service field for a few years, and then the last 4 years of my dad's life I worked for him. After he died, I started working with his foundation, the Bernie Mac Foundation, to just continue to help spread awareness about sarcoidosis and just continue to promote his legacy. Now I am a birth and labor postpartum doula, as well as a writer and a speaker. And a mom of the most beautifulest girl in the world, my daughter Jasmine, who I
Yeah.
affectionately call Fizzle. But yeah,
Yes, I was. So when I was on it, I was like, "Who is Fizzle? Who is
the Fizzle
Fizzle?"
is my baby and my Claire Huxtable voice. That's my baby.
The Fizzle, yes, awesome. So I want to kind of start from the very beginning,
Okay.
and let's talk about growing up in Chicago.
Okay.
You grew up in Chicago, right?
Sure did. Southside, born and raised.
Born and raised. Yeah. So can you talk to me? I wanted to know, before we get to, I guess, talking about your childhood and growing up in with your father and your mom. Can you talk about how your parents met?
Oh, sure. They are. It's. I always feel like they are one of those couples that were just destined to meet. So they originally met when they had both. My mom had graduated from eighth grade, so they were like 13 and 14 respectively, and it was some kind of basement party. It was like the late 60s, 70s. And I guess my dad, like, him and his friends were looking at my mom like, ooh, look at that girl over there. But my mom said she thought my dad was ugly. So she said she looked and was like, oh, he's ugly. And she ran from him. And like he's hollering behind her. So I don't like you either. I think you ugly too. And like, that was it. And then lo and behold, a few years later, they both wound up at Chicago Vocational High School, known as CVS in Chicago. And my mom didn't remember my dad, but my dad remembered my mom.
Wow.
And but she said she couldn't understand. She said she thought he was ugly. And it just so happened, I think her junior year, it was a half day, and one of her friends was going with one of my dad's friends, and the plan was for them to go over to her friend's house. So his friend brought my dad along to pair up with my mom so that they wouldn't be alone. And my mom said on the bus, she tried to avoid my dad because she was just like, he's ugly. Please don't let him come talk to me. And he came and sat next to her, and he told her, he said, "You don't remember me, do you?" And she was like, "No, I don't." She thought he was just, running game. And when
Right.
he told her the story, she was like, "Oh my gosh, that was you." And he was like, "Yeah, see, now you remember." And then she said he went, "I'm black as hell, aren't I?" And she was like, "Yes, you sure are." But he said, "But you've never met a man as black as pretty as me." And she said from that moment on, she just kind of instantly, like, her guard came down because he was so funny and so charming. And that was pretty much it. From there, they were like together all the time, and it just snowballed from there.
So they married in 77, right?
Correct.
77, and then about a year later, you were born.
No, 4 months later.
4 months. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
4 months later.
Yes, they
Wow.
were, like,
Okay.
the timeline is they were both 19.
Right.
They got married September 17th. A couple of weeks later, on October 5th, my dad turned 20. 4 months later, I was born. Then, yeah.
And I was watching. I want to say it was mentioned in his in the biography documentary that so your mom must have gotten pregnant with you first, and then was it like, oh, I guess they need to be married? Was it kind of like that?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so after that, so because your dad did not immediately, Bernie Mac did not immediately go into comedy. Where did he work before? I guess to support his family, he needed to, of course, pick up a job and make sure that you all were supported properly. Where did he work first? Like, where was his? Where did he work?
So when my parents got married, my great grandfather, my dad's grandfather, had got him a job working at General Motors with him. So when my parents got married, like at that time, 1977, they were doing pretty good because my dad had insurance money from my grandmother's death because she died when he was 16, and then he was working at General Motors. Now, at that time, he still wanted to pursue comedy. So he wasn't just like, okay, I'm just doing this and I'm not pursuing comedy. He
Right.
just didn't have the skill. So he did an open mic, I think in 78 or 79. And a then unknown Arsenio Hall went before him and
Mm-hmm.
just, I mean, killed it. And my dad used to always say there's two people that are the most difficult people to go behind: the guy who bombs and the guy who like rips the stage. And that's what happened. Arsenio ripped the stage, and then my dad was the next person to come on. And he was just really green, really hadn't done an open mic before, and was just used to being the funny guy amongst friends and family. So he goes on and he bombs. I mean, he bombs.
Wow.
And after that happened, I think that's what rattled him and made him realize, okay, there's more to comedy than me just making everybody that I know laugh. And that's when he started studying and really like pursuing comedy and going to like any and every open mic he could and performing anywhere. But at the same time, he was still working for General Motors doing that.
And did he work at Wonder Bread too?
He did. Wonder Bread was actually the very last job he held before he just said, forget it, I'm pursuing comedy full time. He hated that job. Like, he could not stand that job. And I think he did everything possible to get fired
Oh,
before he was
wow.
like, you know what? All right. And then he came home one day and was like, I can't do this anymore. I've got to, like, I've just got to go for it. And at first my mom was looking at him like, excuse you, um hello. Your little dream is cute or whatever, but we have mouths to feed, we have bills to pay. And he was like, I can't do it. Like, and she ultimately, after they sat down, she said, okay, go for it. And then she picked up a second job just to make sure that we had that cushion. And thankfully, like, I want to say the following year, that's when he won the Miller Lite Comedy Search here in Chicago. That was a huge comedy competition here. And after he won that, it was just like all of these stair steps moments that just kept happening that catapulted his career.
And it was, you said Miller Lite, right?
Yes.
So was that the $3,000?
Yes.
That was the
Yes.
$3,000 one.
And I thought we were rich. I had never seen that much money in my life. I was like, oh my gosh. Yes.
We made it.
Yes. I was like, you did it, Daddy. You said you would.
And he gave that money to you towards your education, right?
Yep.
Which I
Yes, he
think
did.
yeah. Can you talk a little bit about his reasoning behind that, and just what he wanted, all that he wanted you to accomplish, like with going to college?
Oh, sure. Like for my dad, education was really important to my dad. And that was a dream he never got to live out for himself. He always wanted to go to college, but my paternal family was poor. So, at that time, he didn't have the means to go to college. So for him, it was very important that he be able to provide that opportunity for me. And at the point that he won the Miller Lite Comedy Search, I think I was in like the 6th or 7th grade. So for him, it was very much in the back of his mind, like, college is going to be coming up really fast. I got to make sure that I can send my baby to college. And that was just something he always like instilled in me. Like, you're going to college. I mean, thankfully it's good that I wanted to go, but
Right.
I was going, if it was up to me, I was going whether I wanted to or not with him.
Mm-hmm. And so, can you talk about, so okay, after Miller Lite, was he doing some smaller, I guess what they call the Chitlin circuit, going around to smaller comedy clubs and performing? Was he doing a lot of that before he actually got
Oh
that
yeah.
big break? Yeah.
Yeah, before and after. So there were a lot of comedy clubs here in the city. It was Zany's, all jokes aside, a couple other small. He was going to lounges, pretty much anywhere. Even at times he would be on the L train station platform here in Chicago just performing. But what really kind of solidified it for him and got him like a big local following, there was a club here called the Cotton Club, and he
Mm-hmm.
wound up hosting an open mic on Monday nights there. I mean, everybody used to come through there, and that's how he really started getting a big following. So after the Miller Lite Comedy Search, he won that, and he was getting more opportunities to like not just perform in the clubs, but also do opening acts for different groups. Like he had opened up for well, he didn't wasn't specifically Phyllis Hyman, but there was an event that Phyllis Hyman was at, and she was like, oh my God, you are so funny and talented. So from there, Phyllis was like, if I can do anything, I'm helping you out. And Phyllis started like petitioning for my dad to get jobs. So from there, the Whispers, he was an open act for the Whispers, Barry White, like, I mean, some of everybody. And
Yeah.
as that started happening, Russell Simmons was putting together Def Comedy Jam, and Bob Sumner was executive producer and came into town, and they had auditions, and my dad auditioned. They called him in, and he got it, and he did the first season. That was when he was in like the yellow Cosby sweater and did the stir it like coffee joke. And they liked him so much, they invited him back for season 2. And that was the iconic, I ain't scared of you, And after that, that's kind of what made his career. Like, things just started snowballing because Def Jam was so huge for so many comedians.
Yeah.
Martin blew up after that.
Yep.
And because they did not only did they, I don't think a lot of people remember, not only did they have the show on HBO, but the show got so popular that they actually did a Def Jam tour. And Martin was the host. But like I said, he blew up and got the show. So
Right.
when Martin left the tour, they were like, well, we need another host. And they asked my dad to host. And my dad became the host of the Def Jam tour. And then it, like I said, after that, it just continued to snowball. So after the Def Jam tour, he started to become, really more well known. And he was like, well, there's no point in me touring to give all the money to somebody else. I'm going to put together my own tour. And that's when he put together his tour, Who You With tour, with the band, Macaronis, his dancers. And and that's when they, were in talks with him. They wanted to do a comedy special, but he wanted to turn it into like a series. So that's when they did Midnight Mac, the 4-episode miniseries of which just was like a combination of his tour, and at the same time he was also doing every Monday night at a small club called Miltroneers. He would do that, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And then movie roles started coming, and it just, like I said, everything was always just like these stair step moments that kept happening. That was just like, okay, we think this is the biggest thing that's ever happened to him, and now here comes this thing, and oh wow, now this is the biggest thing, and yeah, it just snowballed.
Now, where were you when all of this was, all of these stair steps was going on? What were you like, oh, dad is, he's doing all these different things? Or did you know what was going on?
Oh yeah. Actually, I was one of the original Macaronis. A lot of people don't know that. I was only 14, but when he put together the first show of his Who You With tour was at home in Chicago. I was a freshman in high school, and he was like, come on, you're gonna be on my show. And I was at rehearsals and all of that with the dancers. So yeah, I was right there. And it's one of those things, like, we were poor, so I really never minded being poor. Like, I never saw us as poor, so I never really minded. He did. And there's this moment that really meant more to him than it meant to me. He was taking me to school one day, and I had to have been like maybe in the 2nd or 3rd grade. And like I said, we were poor, so I was never the kid who could get my new school clothes at the start of the school year. We would go school shopping, and it was always, we had to put it on layaway, and they'd be like, well, we can get it, hopefully we can get it in October, but we probably won't be able to get it till Thanksgiving, which was fine with me. But he was walking me to school this day, first day of school, and the kids were teasing me. And they were like, she had those clothes on last year. And I think for him, that was a really big moment. Like I said, for me, I didn't really care. But he used to always say, I know we don't have as much as all of your other friends, but just trust me, daddy's going to be rich and famous one day. Don't you worry. So every time it happened, and it wasn't like when he said that I didn't believe him. My dad was Superman in my eyes. If he said it, I believed it. But it was wild to watch all of the stuff come to fruition. It was always just like, wow, you said this was going to, oh my God, you said this was going to happen. Look at this. Now, the tour, like being one of the Macaronis, that wasn't exciting to me because that was us working together. And I vowed, bless my mama's heart, I know we got on her nerves because we would come back from the rehearsals, both of us mad at each other because he swore I was messing up, and I was like, you need to talk to your husband. And he come behind me, you better talk to your daughter, you better get your daughter. Like, it was too much. But
oh my goodness, wow. And the dancers was called the Macaronis?
The Macaronis, yep.
The Macaronis. Wow. And you was one of the originals.
One of the originals, yes, it was. 14 dance, and that's why I was so mad, because there's all these professional dancers, and he's ripping me up. You letting them dance circles around you, and I'm like, I'm 14, and they're professionals. I hope they're doing this better than me.
Right, and so wow, that is something. Yeah. I wanted to talk about a couple of the movies when your dad started to get into the movies. I'll just kind of go down a list of them, like Mr. 3000, Pride. I have to say, Pride is my favorite movie.
Get
Pride
out.
is my
I
favorite
love
movie.
that.
I have that movie at home. It's on DVD.
Of course, yeah.
There
I
we go.
DVD too.
And then I was watching. I couldn't find the DVD, so I had to look at it's on YouTube, of course,
Mhm.
YouTube movies, and so I paid my little money and I got the movie and I watched it, and that movie Pride, of course, I want to say it is based on a true story.
It is.
Yes, it is based on a true story, and I looked, did my research on it. I just love that movie from beginning to end. I feel like it's really motivational. So,
It
but
is.
anyways, yeah, Pride is my favorite movie. But from Mr. 3000 to Pride um to Life, and your favorite, I believe, is what's your favorite?
My favorite, it's a toss up between Guess Who and Ocean's 11.
Okay, I thought it would be, I thought it would be one of those two.
Yeah.
One of those two. Yeah. So why are those like your one of your couple of your favorite movies with your dad in it?
Uh, Oceans is one of my favorites because it's just fun. It's just a fun movie from beginning to end. And I like his acting in it. I think he did a perfect mix of combining drama with comedy. Like a lot of times before Oceans, a lot of times when people wanted him in their movies, they wanted him solely as the comic relief. But in Oceans, it really is like a dramedy. It's a comic, comedy slash drama. And so it wasn't just all on his shoulders to be the comic relief. But my dad being my dad, he was going to be funny regardless. But I just really love the way that he presented in that movie. Guess Who is my favorite because I just love me some Percy Jones. I think it's particularly at the time that Guess Who came out, I had only been married a couple of years. So watching Zoe Saldana's character Teresa interact with Percy was like nostalgic, like watching him with me back then. If Percy had cussed just a little bit more, that would have been exactly how he and I were when I brought home my ex-husband and we got married. So yeah, it held a special place in my heart.
And I mean, let's talk about it. The wedding, the wedding that
Yeah.
that you kind of I mean, you not kind of, you did go viral on Instagram on the Shade Room.
Wild. Like it's so you know how you hear people say like I had no idea that would happen. That's how I felt. Like I just on TikTok I kept getting tagged in this one TikTok of him joking about my wedding, and it was happening so much. I was like, okay, let me just let people know this is what it is. I just thought that was going to be the end of it. I was just going to tell the story real quick. That was going to be the end of it. And then next thing I know, it was like everybody and their mama was like, oh man. And then the Shade Room was like, hey, we're posting. And I was just like, what? Huh? Yeah, that was wild.
And if you can just talk, I do want to kind of talk a little bit about, I guess what your father was kind of joking about, or what people like viewers when they saw like the clip, I guess what it was really about, because the wedding itself, it cost 20,000, right?
Listen, I tell people this all the time. My mama planned my wedding. So I have no idea. Like I pretty much was like, okay, these are my colors. I'm gonna come home and pick my dress and my girls' dresses. And but other than that, like that was Rhonda. Rhonda was like, I've got this. All right, this is what we're doing. So yeah. Yeah.
Right, right. That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when I saw that on Instagram, I was like, "Oh, she just went viral." Uh, and then,
My
yeah,
my friend texted me like, she was like, "Girl, you internet famous now." I was like, "What?" And then I saw, and then my phone was just, I mean, It was nonstop notifications for about a good 24 hours. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like this. And it's so like most people don't realize, and I say this often, I'm an introvert. I am like, don't let this fool you. I always say my completely useless superpower is my ability to appear far more confident than I really am, because I'm really not. Like behind this, I'm like, oh my god, okay, am I talking too much? Is it this? Oh. So for me, I am so happy in the background, not being seen. So for that to happen, I was freaked. I was freaked out for about a good 2 weeks over that.
Oh no. People were in the comments. They were like, and there was of course an influx of comments, but they were like, who, like, what's her at? And I had put in there, if you want more content like this, please go to her at Bernie's daughter.
Oh,
And
thank you.
so because people, I mean, people honestly, uh, obviously they don't read because the shade room did tag you, but
They did.
people go straight to the comments anyway, so they bypass all that stuff. They're like, let me see what these comments are saying. So yes, I was like, when I
Yeah.
saw that, I was like, wow. So yeah,
You,
and then,
yeah, both of us were. I still, when I think about that, I'm like, oh my gosh! Like I woke up thinking it was just another day. It's just, yeah.
and it's all it seems like you were just saying, it's always like that post or that comment that you make that you just don't even, you just put it up, you don't even think about it, and then it
Mm-hmm.
goes boom and goes, 10 100,000 likes and views and all that stuff, and you're just like, oh my goodness.
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's talk. I have this in its own category. I want to
Okay.
talk about I want to talk about the Bernie Mac show. And I will say that I grew up watching, my whole family we grew up watching, as many people did, of course, watching
Yeah.
the show. That's how I came to know and love your father,
Yeah.
through the show. Growing up watching Bernie Mac show, and still watching it on Prime, Amazon Prime
Mhm.
now. Um, all the episodes one after the other. Like I'll keep it rolling. Bernie Mac show. It premiered in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
That
2001,
is
and
correct. Yeah.
yes, it concluded in 2006.
Yep.
2006.
Mm-hmm.
So Bernie Mac show. How did that come about? And were you like, did you at the time? How old were you at the time before?
At the time, I that was right before I got married, so I was like in my early 20s, somewhere about 20, 22, I think, somewhere around there, 22.
Around that time?
22. Yeah. But it's so interesting because he'd done a pilot for a TV show years before. And it was actually a really good pilot. It just didn't get picked up. And I remember, like most people will remember Kings of Comedy, when he was the only one of the Kings that didn't have a TV show. And there was a time period where he had been, trying to get on TV shows. He had the recurring role on Moesha as Uncle Bernie,
Mhm.
but execs weren't sold on giving him his own show. The concerns were that he was too blue, because my dad did cuss a lot. And at the time, a lot of execs were like, well, we can't really understand him. We don't know what he's saying. We like, maybe he should get a dialect coach because it's really hard to understand him. And he was basically like, F all of them. I'm not doing any of that. If they don't like me for who I am, F them. And so as the Kings of Comedy tour grew, that one particular joke that everybody knows and loves, my sister's kids, just became like a fan favorite. And as he started pitching, like he really wasn't even pitching at that time. It was really Larry Wilmore. Larry Wilmore was like, hey, that joke, there's something there. How about we turn this into a show? And they started working together and they started pitching. And it wound up like at the last minute. I remember a lot of networks passed because, like I said, folks weren't sold on him. NBC passed, ABC passed. So then it was just between CBS and Fox. And then he ultimately went with Fox, and it just kind of, it premiered And at the time that it premiered, remember, like I don't think people realize the single camera, sitcom now is pretty much standard. But at the time, that people weren't doing that. There was multi angles, there was a laugh track, and my dad was very intentional about there being none of that. He was like, we don't need to dumb down the audience. They will know when, if something's funny to them, they will laugh. They will know when to laugh. We don't need to cue them to laugh with that little phony laugh track. He hated that. He was like, I want to do something people have never seen before. And when he did it, I remember, like, the critics loved it, but there were still a lot of people that were like, this is different than what I'm not used to. People couldn't get into the sitcom of it. And by the time we got to the end of season 1, people were like, I love this. And it just, it ballooned. Like the show, he wound up getting nominated for an Emmy. The show was nominated for an Emmy, I think all but the final season, NAACP awards, Peabody Awards, and then he wound up becoming, I think, number 47 on TV Guide's best TV dads list. Like,
wow, yeah.
Yeah.
So wow, yeah, the show, and I was gonna talk about how innovative he was with breaking the fourth wall, looking directly at the camera. America. See, I can't even say it. I can't even say it like he said it, but just the way he said it, like, look, this is what's going on. This is crazy. Like, I just remember and even when he would have like different guest stars that would be sitting in that I guess kind of like his man cave, like whenever he would be talking straight directly to America, and sometimes he would have those different guest stars on. It was just, at the end, especially seeing the bloopers, just kind of I'm just kind of thinking about, all the different things with the show and how it really did captivate the audience.
It did. It did. Yeah. It was relatable in a way that I don't think a lot of people imagined that they would be able to relate to it. Even, and that was across, of course, we as Black people, there were certain things in there that we as Black people know, but it surpassed just the Black culture. And I think that's what was shocking to a lot of people. Like, I remember at the time, my ex-husband, he had a coworker who they had to go out of town on a conference. And my dad, that was when they came on Thursday nights, same time as Friends. And my ex-husband told his coworker, he said, listen, I know y'all used to watching Friends. You used to watching Friends on Thursday night. We ain't watching Friends. We watching the Bernie Mac show. And when they came back, I remember his coworker, I wound up seeing him later. And he said, I got to watch your dad's show and I really liked it. And you could tell he was shocked that he liked it. And I was like, well, I'm glad you liked it. And he kept going, but it was so good. And you could tell he was just so shocked that he probably looked at it and thought I would never be able to relate to that show, and wound up watching it and was pleasantly surprised. So I think that happened to a lot of people.
And let's talk about the characters, Vanessa, Brianna, Jordan. Which character do you or did you relate to the most? Because I saw a comment on Instagram and someone asked if you related to Vanessa's character more. However, you said it was Jordan.
Jordan, I'm Jordan all day. And that's so funny because most people think Vanessa was tailored after me. And I'm like, no, I could have never gotten away with the stuff Vanessa did. It wouldn't have even occurred to me to do and say the things Vanessa did. I was Jordan. I was sensitive. I was nerdy. I had no you got to understand, for my dad, I say this all the time, if comedy was his first love, sports was his second. So to have a child with no athletic ability at all hurt. When I tell you his feelings were so hurt, because I couldn't dance until I was like 9. It wasn't, I was the sensitive, geeky kid. So a lot of the interactions that you see with him and Jordan, that was how he was with me. When you soft, you're weak. We gotta toughen you up. That's how he used to talk to me. Cause I like the episode where he's trying to teach Jordan how to stand up for himself.
Yeah.
And he's like, you gotta jump, I put a tape, you gotta talk about people's mama. I put a tablespoon of water in the tub, your mama got in it, overflowed. And Jordan is like, now, Uncle Bernie, that's so mean. What if I like his mama? That was me. That was me all day. I'm like, but that's so mean. Why don't you just love people? If you love people, they'll love you. And he used to be just like, God dog, what is wrong with you? Like, so no. Not Vanessa. I'm Jordan.
Jordan all the way.
All day.
Wow.
I just wasn't as mischievous as Jordan. The mischievousness of Jordan, he used himself for it. That was him as a kid. But yeah, that sensitivity and nerdiness, yeah, that was me.
How true is the show's storyline from what actually happened in real life?
Very loosely based. And that's I feel so bad for people when I have to tell them that joke wasn't based on true events. Because you can see, like, he told the story so well that people really believed it. So yeah. I still get like people, how are them kids? Oh, how are the kids? And I just see their little hearts break when I had to tell them, oh, those kids weren't real. You could just see them like, wait, the kids aren't real? What? But the joke was loosely inspired by real events. So my senior year in high school, one of my maternal cousins, she was 18 and she had a 2-year-old. He moved them in with us. And at the same time, a friend of his, I think it was her niece and nephew that she moved in with her because of some issues with her sister. So they would, get on the phone and commiserate with, trying to do blended family and take care of other people's kids. And because he was the type that could find comedy in anything, he turned it in like the family reunion episode when he talks about Mama Liva and like different cousins. Those were actual family members of ours. So he did try to incorporate a lot of his life into the show.
Wow. Well, that's what made it real. That's what captivated the audience by adding that personal touch to it, which wasn't too common in especially at the time of the Bernie Mac show. So, that was very revolutionary for your father to incorporate that into the show. Did you ever go on set of the show? And
yeah, we hated it too. Gosh. Like, no, don't get me. The crew was awesome. We loved the crew. The thing is, my dad, when he started filming the show, he was gone. Even that was the most he was gone from home. He was gone like 9 months out of the year. So when we would go visit, he would just want us on set all day with him. Like, we couldn't do any, like, we could say, we're gonna go get some lunch and we'll be back. No, y'all ain't gotta go nowhere. I have somebody to go get us lunch. Like, craft service, go get you some lunch. And we're like, oh my gosh. And a lot of people don't understand, because you watch the finished product, you watch a movie or a show at home and you think, oh my gosh, it must be so fun to sit and watch that being filmed. But it's not. When you have to sit and watch one scene, like not in the full scene, like maybe half of one scene for like 2 hours. And then they say, cut. Okay, everybody, we're going to turn around and then start from the top. Like when we would go visit, like whatever episode they were filming, when we would visit, I wouldn't even watch that episode when it came on air, because I was like, I already know I've seen them film this so many times. I don't even want to watch the episode no more. Nope, that's all right.
Did you ever want to be in like were you ever in any scenes? Like
no,
the whole show?
No. Like the only time I even remotely wanted to be in front of the camera was I think I was like 14 or 15. No, 13. I think I was 13 or 14 when he did his first pilot, Pearl's Place to Play. His character had a 14-year-old daughter. And now, I'm young then. So I was like, well, who better to play your daughter than your daughter? Come on, man. And Countess Vaughn ultimately won that part. But as I got older, like I said, it's all fun and games when you're watching the finished product, when you're seeing people on the red carpet. And it's not the work itself, I wouldn't mind. It's all the stuff that comes later, like having to deal with fame and that notoriety. That's outside of my comfort zone. So I would have preferred to have been in the writer's room. That's where I would have loved to have been.
And did you see like the, I guess the, with like whether it was different different partnership deals, I guess with different companies that your dad would make throughout his comedic and professional career, like I guess really the good and maybe the bad side of fame, like would you ever exposed to any of that, and just kind of was like, I don't know if I want to, if that's, something I want to do, if that's going to be, you know.
Oh yeah, you see it a lot. Like he had an agent that stole all his money. Like we we yeah.
Wow.
And it's just weird how you see, and I get it, from a financial standpoint, executives aren't going to take a chance on someone that they don't think is bankable. Like if they don't think they're going to make money from you, it's not going to happen. But I don't think I have it in me to deal with, like, you got to have really tough skin and you've got to really be okay with rejection.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting to see so many of the same executives who were like, no, he's not funny, or he's too blue, or we can't understand him. He's not attractive enough. Like all these, and they have no shame in saying it. Like it's not even a thought. Like it's not, no, let's temper it. It's, oh no, he's not attractive. You see how black he is? He's not attractive. No, nobody. We can't put him in front of a camera. Like, that's how they would talk.
Yeah.
To, now all of a sudden he's hot. So now everybody, oh my God, Bernie, you're so great. You're so fun. Like, I don't have the BS in me to sit there and yes, thank you. I don't have it. I would have been like, that's not what you said 3 years ago on January 14th when we came to pitch the show. Like, see, that would be me. I just don't have it.
Wow. And I mean, I'm just kind of thinking of also children of celebrities, like celebrity children. And I guess that's a whole thing in itself, with just even from like, did you ever hang out with any, like on the red carpets or anything, hang out with any other celebrity children or anything like that?
No, like, so here's the interesting thing about that. My dad, we didn't move outside of the Chicagoland area. My dad was
Right.
adamant that he was not leaving Chicago. So when he started, well, first of all, he didn't get like famous and really well known until I was in college by the time people more than locally knew who he was. And by that point, he was adamant. He was like, things are going to start happening. And he pulled me, to his credit, I've got to give my dad credit for this. To his credit, when he saw that his career was about to take off, he pulled me to the side and he said, listen, I got to let you know. Remember how I always told you I'm going to be rich and I'm going to be famous. Things are starting to happen. But I need you to know you're about to be hated. He was like, you're about to be hated for no other reason than because you're my daughter and I take good care of you. He said, now, if I didn't take good care of you, everybody would talk about me and it's a damn shame Bernie Mac don't take care of his daughter. He said, but because I take good care of you, they're going to hate you for it. And they're going to feel like you had everything handed to you. And then he went on to say, he said, daughter, everybody got a ghetto story. Everybody. He said, there's not a person on this earth who ain't been through something, who doesn't have something. He said, my story, they'll respect, because they'll feel like I came from nothing and made something of it. He said, yours, they won't respect because they'll feel like you didn't struggle enough. You didn't come, you had everything handed to you. So what could you possibly have to struggle with? And he was absolutely right. And it was odd to see some of the very same people who knew us when we were struggling, who were right there, who saw us struggling, all of a sudden turned around and did just that and just rewrote history like they didn't see us struggling. It was just so odd. So by the time he really got big to where he could, doing red carpets and stuff, he wouldn't let us do it. And we used to be mad at him at first. But he was like, I know y'all are mad. He said, but I want y'all to have your own lives, y'all all your own identities. He said, I want y'all to be able to be free to go wherever you want to go without paparazzi following you and chasing you. And at the time, we weren't trying to hear that. At the time, for us, me and my mom, that felt like rejection, because we were like, wait a minute, you were always talking about how you were going to make all this stuff happen. Now here you are having some of the biggest highs in your career, and we can't share it with you. Like, what's wrong with you? But now I get it, and I appreciate it, because he's right. We were able to freely walk the streets, go wherever we wanted to go, do whatever we wanted to do without having that spotlight on us. So I really appreciate that he did that.
And I think that's, just thinking about parents, and how they tell you, just like how what you were just saying, they tell you the first time because they love you. They tell you because they love you. But of course, we're not trying to hear that. We trying to we're like, no. I'm trying to be out there in the spotlight. But I'm trying to do what I gotta do. But then you get older, and you go through, you have more years of experience, and you look back and like, yeah. I understand now. Now. So yes, definitely. So.
I'll tell you how how I came to understand. I worked in New Orleans for the Orleans Parish Criminal Courts. I was like a probation officer / counselor. And this was like one of the first times he let us go on the red carpet with him. I think it was for one of the award for the Emmys or the NAACP. I don't remember which one. And was it Ebony or Jet magazine? I don't remember which one. Somebody put it in their magazine. The next week, when I have court with all my clients, they all start. So Miss Je'Niece, you want to set up Bernie Mac's daughter? And I'm trying to play. I'm like, I'm not Bernie Mac's daughter. What are you all talking about? They all pulled out a magazine. So this ain't you? This ain't you right here? I was like, oh, you know what? Let's go back to me not being on the red carpet with you. You know what? You were right. You were right.
Right. Yeah. And so, and you were his personal assistant for a couple years.
Yep.
For 4 years. How was 4 years? How was that?
That was, you know what? In hindsight, I'm not sure I was the best person. I'm good. Like, I'm good with errands and appointments and all of that. Where I'm not good, the phone. So and that was where we would bump heads, because he'd be like, you in the keep your phone on. And I'm one of those not only am I not good with phones, but I'm one of those people where phones just act weird around me. So you could be saying I'm calling you and my phone won't be ringing. And you'll be mad, like, I'm calling you, and I'll be staring at my phone like, but it's not ringing. Yeah, that was my weakest part. But if you're a personal assistant, you don't have the luxury of that being the weakest part. But everything else, I was go appointments, like getting all his stuff lined in order, and I was golden on that. But the phone, but as far as working with him, I'm really glad that we had that moment. Because, I told you, like, when I was 14, I swear I was like, I would never work for him ever. But by the time it came about in 2004, and he was like, listen, I hate you away from what you went to school for, but whoever does this, I've got to be able to trust them. They're going to be privy to a lot of personal information that I just, I can't just trust anybody with that. And I remember looking at him and I said, well, okay, well, I'll make more money than I would make in my field. I can actually say I like my boss. And there's probably going to be a whole lot of perks that come with that because I know the boss really well. I was like, sign me up. I'll do it. And I'm glad that I did, because that really helped to strengthen our relationship. I think that put us in a space, because at that point, like, I was newly married. And like I said, early 20s. So that's when we started to forge, like, where he realized you're not a little girl anymore. And we started to have like an adult's parent-child relationship. So it turned out to be good. Minus it, because he could be a control freak. Now that's the only, if I had a negative, he was a control freak. He was that person that would tell you to do something, you do it, he go behind you and redo it, and then when it's not right, he gets mad at you, and it's like it was right before you came along. That was the only thing. Minus that part, everything was good.
Wow. And can you talk a little bit about about his personality? And I think you touched a little bit about you touched a little on it when you were talking about comparing yourself to the character of Jordan from the Bernie Mac show, and just how, like, from the show, how, of course, in the show, how Bernie treated Jordan, and it was like, I think one scene I was watching, Jordan was like, he was just like throwing a tantrum, and Bernie was like, be a man, and then Jordan's like, I don't want to be a man. So can you talk a little bit about his personality? Like, how was he at home?
A lot like his character on the TV show. That was a lot of that was him. That's why it felt so natural. I always tell people my dad had a heart of gold. He really did. Um, I don't think you'll ever meet someone who wanted the best for people as much as my dad did. Now, the con of that is, in his mind, the best was what he thought it was for you. So there was no room for you to go, I hear you, but I would prefer to do this. Then he'd be mad at you, like, I'm trying to help you. Why don't you let me? You're like, okay, but I do get a say in my own life, right? Like, that was pretty much it. But he just a really fun person to be around. Now, for me, sometimes, especially growing up, it was a little different because he took being a father very seriously. So one minute he could be fun, and then the next minute it was like something set him off, and I would be like, what? What is this? Hold on, sir. We were just laughing. Like, what happened? But all in all, he was just a good guy. Like, I don't think they make too many people like my dad. Just a genuine person. And you'll hear a lot of people who knew him in the industry. If you were down and out, my dad probably stepped in and helped you. Didn't like, he would never tell your business. It's not like he was going to tell people, to this day, there's so many things that so many charitable acts my dad did behind the scenes that he never wanted other people to know. That's just how he was. And he used to always say there's room at the cross for everybody. So he wasn't the guy that was like, only I can have and no one else can have. My dad was, if I got it, I want to make sure that everybody else has it too. So yeah, but like I said, if you really want a good glimpse of who he was, Uncle Bernie, that the show. Like I said, just if there was more cussing, that was him.
Do you keep in contact with any of the cast members?
Every now and then I'll see them. I haven't spoken to them in a while, but Camille and I follow each other on Instagram, so that's where I'll sit and talk to a lot of them. But yeah, the good thing about all of them, like I said, they're all just really just wonderful human beings. So I'm pretty sure if I had reached out at any moment and said, "Hey, help," they'd all be right there.
Yeah. Well, that's good that you know that they have your that you have their support.
Yeah,
that is good. So sarcoidosis. There we go. I got it. Can you talk about what the disease is and the exact year that your dad was diagnosed? Was it in the 80s?
Yes, it was in the 80s. Yep. Sarcoidosis is an autoimmune disease. And what all that means is that it makes the body attack itself. With sarcoidosis, it can affect any organ of the body, be it your eyes, your skin, your lungs, your heart, any organ. And unfortunately, it's very hard to diagnose because it mimics so many other diseases. And because so little is known for it, the treatments they'll usually either tell you, well, if it's not giving you too much impairment, leave it alone, or they'll prescribe a steroid. because of the, it causes inflammation. So in my dad's case, it affected his six when he was diagnosed. At the time, his main symptoms was just a lot of shortness of breath. And like I said, my dad sports was his second love. So he played basketball, he boxed, he, did a lot of stuff. And he was like, I'm noticing that I'm really winded, and I shouldn't be. And he went to the doctor and was originally told it was cancer, which unfortunately today, if you talk to a lot of sarcoidosis patients, they'll tell you the same thing happened to them. He finally got a second opinion, and she told him, I don't think it's cancer. She ran some more tests, and that's when she told him it was sarcoidosis. So at the time, she pretty much told him, well, if that's your only symptom, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just keep living your life. And as time progressed, that's when he was prescribed steroids. And as anybody with any type of autoimmune disease like lupus or sarcoidosis can tell you, prolonged use of steroids starts to impact your health just as badly as the disease itself. So for him, it wound up inducing diabetes, which we already have a family history of. And he had hypertension in addition to that. And as the years went on, by the time he got to the Bernie Mac show, the sarcoidosis had caused so much scarring in his lungs that he was really at a decreased lung capacity. He was really operating at the capacity of one lung. That's how bad the scarring was. And he was on oxygen for the last 4 years of his life because of that decreased lung capacity. And ultimately, it got to a point he hated being on the steroids. So he tried to go to some other drugs. Next in class, if they can't give you steroids, they'll give you like immune suppressors. So they tried methotrexate. He had a very bad reaction to that. And that's when, if you go back in his career, that's when he first started getting hospitalized. So when you started hearing all the reports of him being hospitalized, it was the adverse reactions to all the drugs. So after methotrexate, he tried Plaquenil, which is another immune suppressor. Same thing happened. It made him even more sick. So then he tried Imuron. Same thing happened. To where ultimately his pulmonologist was like, listen, I know you hate the prednisone, but it's what works. And at this time, we don't have the luxury of trying to keep trying. You'll die from us trying to, go to all these other drugs. So you got to go back to the prednisone. So I think it's like season 4 or 5 of the break? Like you can see, his moon face. That's from the prednisone. And he hated, he hated that so much. But it was what was needed. And that's what ultimately got him feeling better. Because around that time, I do remember he lost out on the part of the movie Old Dogs with John Travolta, Martin Lawrence, William H. Macy. My dad originally was supposed to play the part that Martin had. And he had the part. They were getting ready to start filming. But because he had been, sick and hospitalized, he did the physical. But they wanted him to do another physical and then pay, like, I think an additional $2 million on top of for his insurance. And he was like, I'm not doing all of that. I did the physical. I passed. Like, y'all, like, I'm not doing that. And so they dropped him and got Martin. But that was one of the reasons why he didn't want to talk so much about sarcoidosis publicly, because people didn't want to take a chance on him after that. They were afraid, like, hey, he's been hospitalized. What if this happens again? And so he didn't want it to have an adverse effect on his career. But yeah, it ultimately became the complications of the disease and the drugs is what ultimately led to his death.
And I mean, and this is all going on during the filming and production of the show, right?
The filming of the show, the filming of the movies. Like I said, it started in 2004.
Right.
So not only